Hi there and welcome to this 20-minute Pilates routine designed for those of you who are runners. Now, why do we need Pilates if we are runners? Surely we just run to get better at running. Well, actually, it might be that when you're running, you're using some of your kind of stronger, more dominant muscles, but some of your weaker muscles are not showing up. Now imagine how much better a runner you would be if they were showing up, how much less likely to be injured you might be, how much faster you might be able to run, or how you might be able to run longer distances without fatigue. So today we're going to be working on making sure that some of those really important running muscles are showing up, such as the glutes, the hamstrings, and the hip flexors. Now you don't need any equipment at all except a mat or a towel on the floor, and this is safe for you as long as you are not pregnant or recently postnatal. If you're injured, just listen to your body and see how it feels. But otherwise, if you're ready, let's get started. So we're going to just start by reminding ourselves of what a neutral start position is. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to be neutral all the time or that you need to run in neutral, but for some of these exercises today, you're going to need to understand this concept. So what I'd like you to do is stand with your feet about hip width apart and have them parallel, like the number 11. With your knees, just make sure they're not locked, but they're also not bent. Your knees are just a little bit soft. The pelvis, imagine it's like a bowl of water that you don't want to spill. So it might be that normally it would spill out the front, that's how my pelvis sits. It might be that you aggressively tuck under and it would spill out the back. Try and find some sort of middle ground. With your rib cage, I want you to feel as if it's stacked above that pelvis. It might be that you notice when you run that you lean backwards and you rib flare, which is what I do, or maybe you shove your rib cage down. It makes it really difficult to breathe efficiently. So instead, I want you to think about the pelvis stacking above, the rib cage stacking above that pelvis. Your arms are by your side to begin with, you're showing off your collarbone, and your eyes are eye level. Now in this position, there's this feeling of almost being stacked like Lego. Where is the weight in your feet? I want it to be equal across the whole foot. So you're not in your toes, you're not in your heels, you're somewhere in the middle. Then once you've found that, hold it here and turn your attention to your breath, breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. Keep that going, guys. And so there's this sense here of being in a kind of middle ground. Okay, that's really what neutral's on about. There's no extreme changes to how our skeleton would have necessarily looked in neutral. Now see if you can maintain this, and I just want you to reach your right arm overhead and hold it there. In normal life, we would end up leaning backwards here to reach further, but I want you to try and maintain the position that we just found, particularly with the rib cage over the pelvis. Then lower that arm down and do the other arm. Lift the arm up overhead, double check that you haven't moved out of that position. Inhale, lower it back down. And we're just going to keep this movement going. So we exhale to lift, inhale to lower, exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Now keep this going. It's really helpful if you have a mirror nearby that you can use, or if you think about the distance between your trousers and your t-shirt or a bra if you're wearing it, that distance should not change, because if it's changing, we know your spine is also moving. I want it to just be the arm that moves. Now, if you wanted to, you could change this and do both arms overhead and both arms down, exhaling as you lift, inhaling as you lower. Whilst we might not feel a burn like we do with crunches, our abdominals are working at the front to prevent extension of the spine as the arms lift. Okay, you do not need to do this in your everyday life. Please don't move like a robot for the rest of the day, just for this exercise. Now, if you wanted to, you could start to add in a calf raise. So as you lift your arm or both arms, lift your heels, start to warm up those calves, still focusing on that connection that we have here at the front that stops us leaning back as the arms lift. Stay stacked like Lego, exhaling as you lift. Can you tell I've got children? Exhaling as you reach, inhaling as you release. Lovely. We're just going to do another 3 of these. Use that strong exhale as you lift up. On the next one, can we all lift our arms up, heels up as well if you feel safe, and stay here for a moment. Just double check that you have that feeling of being stacked. Remember what it feels like. Then we're going to lower the heels down and we're going to bring the hands to prayer position at the chest. Now remember, guys, your knees are not locked, but they're not bent. They're just soft. From here, we're going to hip hinge. We're going to start bowing. We're going to push our bums back and we're going to hinge at those hips, and we're going to go as far as we can manage without cheating, and we'll hold. Now, what would cheating look like here? We'd either bend our knees, which I don't want you to do, or we'd round our backs, which I also don't want you to do. So we've got soft knees, and our back is still neutral. We've still got that feeling of the rib cage stacking over the pelvis. Now from here, we're going to push our feet down into the ground, and that should bring us back to standing. Reset, find your neutral, and then go again. Inhale, we hinge at the hips, we push the bottom back. Exhale, press the feet into the ground, and we're into our hip hinges. Now, I would say that this is one of the best exercises that we can do as runners, because what we've got as we come out here is a lengthening and stretching of the calves, hamstrings, and glutes. As we pull ourselves back up, we're contracting those same muscles. And as runners, we want to make sure that we are mobile. So there's an element of flexibility in our muscles, but that they're also able to contract with power when we need them. So we're inhaling as we hinge, we're lengthening those muscles. Exhale, we're using them to bring ourselves back to the top. Let's do 3 more of these. Just watch those shoulders aren't slipping forwards and rounding. 2 more. Now on the next one, we're going to go out halfway, and then we're just going to hold it there for a moment. So we're neither fully flexed or fully in neutral. Now options, we bring our arms to the side of the body. We can either reach one arm forwards on the exhale, and inhale, bring it in. Exhale, reach the other arm forwards, and inhale, bring it in, or we can do both arms. This is exactly what we just did in standing, okay? We're just putting it into a different position, challenging different muscles. And gravity's kind of playing a different role here. So, hamstrings, glutes, calves, holding you in position. I want you to make sure your core is active here to support your lower back. So I'd really think about kind of drawing your belly button in slightly, or think about this kind of wrapping around of your transverse muscle, which is your corset muscle. Almost imagine it kind of cinching you in, providing support. We're going to do 2 more of these. And when you're done with your last one, bring your hands back to prayer position, come back to standing, and I would just have a quick wiggle and a quick shake out. Now, when you're ready, guys, from here, I'd like you to find your neutral again with your hands in prayer. You're going to shift your weight over to your right leg. Now, it's not really obvious. It's just a shifting of weight. And then from here, we're going to float our left leg up to tabletop, and we're going to hold. Now, when you do this, ideally your hips will stay level. Some of us might find we get a bit of a hip drop. Maybe we have a bit of a weakness in our hip abductors that mean we really struggle to maintain neutral. So I want you to try anyway, either way. Then all we're going to do is we're going to tap the toe on the floor, then exhale, bring it back up. Inhale, we lower the foot towards the floor. Exhale, we bring that leg back to tabletop. Let me show you from this side. So I've mentioned that from the front, ideally I'd like your hips to stay level. Can you see here though from the side, I'm also keeping everything else still. What I don't want is a kind of flexing and extending of my spine as my leg moves. Because then actually what we're starting to do is just use our lower back to move our leg. Actually, if we keep the pelvis still and we manage to flex the hip, we know that our hip flexor is lifting the leg off the floor. Think about when you're running, pulling that back leg forwards, driving it through, it's your hip flexor that should be doing that job. But often I do find in modern day lives, hip flexors can tend to be quite weak and tight, which is not ideal. So everything else is staying still. Use your hands to kind of feel that that is the case. And we should be starting to feel something here. It's not the most pleasant feeling, but that's not necessarily a bad sign, okay? We want it to burn and feel like it's getting stronger. Let's do 2 more of these. 1 more. Last one, lift it, hold it for a moment. If you want more of a challenge, you could try and extend that left leg out. Hold it there. 3, 2, 1. That's horrible. Have a wander. It should really feel like you want to anyway. Like you want to wiggle that leg and get that lactic acid moving out of those hip flexors. Okay. From here, come back to standing in the middle of your mat. Find neutral again. This time I'd like you to do a little baby squat. So we're not kind of ass to grass. We're a bit higher than that. We've still got a neutral spine. There's a bit of a hip hinge, yeah? Now from here, shift your weight from left foot to right foot. Left foot to right foot. Then when you're ready, I want you to take that weight back over to the right foot again. And then from here, we're going to lift up the left heel. We're going to tap the left foot back, then tap it back in. We tap it back and we tap it back in. And it's really just kissing the floor. Let me show you from this side. So it's only gently touching the ground. Now you can probably guess what I'm going to say here. Ribs in line with pelvis. And let me show you what that looks like when it's wrong. You might look like this, in which case your back will be getting very grippy. Again, this is how I end up running sometimes. I lean backwards and my ribs flare, which is not ideal. Equally, if you spend a lot of time at your laptops or on your phones, you might find you end up here. Neither are ideal, particularly from a breathing point of view, which is so important with running. From the front, try and get those hips level. If you're doing this, you've got an issue there with probably a weakness in your hip abductor, where you're struggling to keep those hips level. Running is a single leg exercise, right? You're always on one leg, so we need to be able to stabilize the pelvis on a single leg. We should be feeling it here. Let's do 2 more. 1 more. Now, on this last one, if you've got anything left in the tank, tap the foot back, lift the foot off the floor, hold. Are the hips level? Try not to drop that left hip. 3, 2, 1, and you should want to walk it off. Again, you should want to have a bit of a wiggle, a bit of a shake out. If you are not feeling this in your glutes, don't worry, but equally it doesn't mean that you're super strong and that's why you're not feeling it. You should feel it there, no matter how strong you are. So you might just need to practice it a few times. Now let's do the other leg. So first of all, we come back to standing in neutral, hands in prayer. Shift your weight to your left foot first of all, it's very subtle. Then from here we float the right leg up to tabletop and we hold it here a second. What's going on when we lift this leg? Whatever is going on probably goes on when you're running as well. So are you noticing a hip drop? Imagine what that looks like when you run from one leg to the other and your hips are going like this all the time. It's probably not ideal. Lots of us will be fine doing it and never get injured, but it's probably not ideal. So try and get those hips level. And what are we looking like from the side? Are we kind of scrunching and trying to use our abs to lift the leg? Or have we actually used the hip flexor? Then when we're happy, we're going to inhale, tap the foot down, exhale, float it up. Inhale, tap, exhale, lift. And let this right hip flexor do the work. Nothing else is moving. Therefore, we can pretty much guarantee the mover here is my hip flexor, which is pulling that leg up and then releasing back down. Remember that some of the hip flexors go into the lower back. So if you're noticing that the pelvis is moving loads, again, it's probably that we are cheating somewhere. Try and keep the pelvis fixed so that when that muscle shortens, it lifts the leg and then lengthens back out. We want muscles that can contract, but can also lengthen. Okay, well, I'm definitely feeling it, and it's not a pleasant feeling, but again, we don't always want to shy away from that. From the front, hips are level. Use your hands to kind of feel for that. And if you are finding there's lots of scrunching, maybe try activating your core a bit more. So thinking about the corset muscle that wraps around your trunk. Let's do 1 more. Let's lift and hold. So stay, breathe. If you wanted more, extend that leg. It's horrible. 3, 2, 1, and walk it off. Lengthen the hip flexor. You can even take the leg behind you a few times if you need to. Give it a wiggle, give it a rotate. And then come back to standing in neutral. Little baby squat, yeah? So feet hip width, nice neutral spines. Shift your weight over to your left leg. Lift up your right heel, same leg now. We take it behind us and bring it in. So now we're getting a lengthening of the hip flexor. And then it's obviously pulling us back in. But what we really should feel is kind of that the glute at the back is pulling the leg back. And although it's the right leg that's moving, it really should be the left hip that starts to get tired by the end, because hopefully it's holding our hips level. If we're getting hip drop, again, that's where we might not feel what we should feel. If the hips are level, okay, this hip is doing a huge amount of work to hold that pelvis in place on top of that leg. Okay, so that's why that left side should be tired by the end. Lovely, press. It's only a little tap of the floor. Remember, it's like a toe is kissing the ground, a bit creepy, but there we are. And remember, if you've got a bit of juice left in the tank here, we've got a hold coming up. We're going to do 3 more of these. Last 2. So on the last one, tap the foot back and hold. And then when you're ready, if you feel like you can, lift the foot off the floor. Try not to rotate though. Both hips point forwards. Hold it for 3, 2, 1, and walk it off. Give your leg a bit of a wiggle and a bit of a shake and relax. So we have warmed up calves, hamstrings, glutes. We've focused on that kind of rib cage pelvis alignment. I just want to finish with a bit of ab work because those abs are going to also help support that lower back and pelvis. So in your own time, come down onto the floor. We're going to meet on our backs and we're going to lie down. We're going to find a neutral start position in lying. So what this would look like again is the ribs and pelvis lined up. If you're like me and you sort of back bend, you're going to have a massive gap here and your ribs will be flaring. I don't want that. Equally, try not to shove your lower back into the floor. Feel like you've got gentle curves. And then from here, fingers to temples, elbows wide. Now, on your inhale, give yourself a little double chin. And as you exhale, just start to float your head and then your shoulders off the floor and come up into flexion and hold. Now, I want your eye line to be just at the top of your knees. You're not digging your chin into your chest. And I really want there to be a feeling that your pelvis stayed still. The rib cage moved down towards the pelvis. You're not pushing your lower back into the mat or gripping through your hip flexors. Now inhale, hold it here. Exhale, slowly come down. We'll go again. Inhale, little head nod. Exhale, lift your head and shoulders up off the floor. Inhale, hold it. Exhale, slowly release back down. And we're going to keep this going. Inhale, little head nod. Exhale, curl up. Inhale, hold it. Exhale, release it slowly back down. So again, your pelvis is going to stay still. We're thinking about the rib cage sliding down towards the front of the hip bones. And if you find that your neck is getting really tired, do not feel like it's cheating to just put your hands behind your head. As long as you're not actually kind of pulling your head up with your arms, you can just treat it almost like a little support for your neck. Because really we're trying to target the abdominals down here. And if you have to give your neck a bit of support to get those burning, your abs burning, it's really not the end of the world. Lovely. Remember that lower back should not be forced into the floor. If you're doing that, you are cheating. I know you might not realize you are. It's not intentional. 2 more of these. On the last one, we're going to come up. We're going to hold this last one here for a moment and stay. Again, if you need hands behind your head, that's fine. Otherwise, little tiny pulses here. Go further, go further. Okay, not digging your chin into your chest. Your eyes are on top of your knees. 3, 2, last one we hold. And come down and rest. Have a quick breather. Now maintain that neutral position that you just found. Float your left leg up to tabletop. And then I'd like you to bring your other leg up to join it. And you might need to do a bit of a wriggling around to try and find that neutral position again. Because if you've got weak or tight hip flexors, you might find that your back is arching aggressively away from the floor. So hold it there. Now fingers to temples, lift the head and shoulders back up off the floor again and look at those knees. If you need hands behind your head, that's fine. From here, we're going to lower one leg down to the floor, tap the toe on the floor, bring it back up. Do the same with the other leg. So if you look, guys, my pelvis is staying fixed. My leg is moving in my hip socket. My hip flexor is moving my leg. Hip flexors again, fantastic. That's a good sign. My abs are keeping me up here in flexion. Okay, so my abs are still working and I've got abs and hip flexors. Brilliant, that's what we want. Okay, so if your neck is tired, put your hands behind your head. If that isn't helping, put your head down, but still focus on keeping the spine still. We are not arching our backs off the floor or digging them into the mat. If you want to work harder, you could tap both toes to the floor and bring both legs back up. Both go down, both go up, but do not let that pelvis move. 5 more seconds. Lovely. Final 3, 2, 1. Come down, hug your knees into your chest. Gently rock from side to side. Have a little breather. And then when you're ready, hands behind your knees, roll up onto your bums for me. And then finishing off in seated, I'd like you to bring the bottoms of your feet together for me. And then slowly just start to walk those feet closer towards your pelvis. So bring them in as close as is comfortable for you. Hands on your ankles, elbows on your knees, and just gently press your knees down. Relax your chin towards your chest, find a comfortable position here, and then just focus on your breath, breathing in through your nose, filling up the back of the rib cage. And as you exhale, just press those knees down a touch more. Again, big deep breath in, fill up the back of the rib cage. And then again, exhale, just gently press those elbows into your knees. So here we've got a bit of work on opening up those hips, but we're also focusing on extending our breath, breathing into parts of the rib cage that maybe we don't always get to. And breathing is going to be a huge part of improving your running, particularly for long distances. Let's do one more big deep breath here. And then when you're ready, you can let go of those legs, come to a comfortable sitting position, and that is you finished for today. So I hope that you enjoyed that. If you have extra time to spend on the mat, I'd maybe consider spending some time doing a little bit of mobility work, that's a mouthful, a bit of stretching, particularly for hip flexors, hamstrings and your back. But hopefully you enjoyed that. And actually when we strengthen muscles and we help balance out joints, we find that we are more mobile. So it doesn't need to be, if you feel very tight, that you just spend loads of time stretching. Often, strengthening the muscles that support your joints will help you feel more mobile and everything will just kind of relax a little bit rather than being grippy and holding on for dear life. So strength work is really, really important. So I hope that you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions or feedback, do get in touch. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you on the mat again very soon. Bye!